Started here.
Sure.
Inflation, Mr. President, is Ohioans' chief concern, especially here in the Miami Valley. Our viewers feel it at the grocery store, at the gas pumps, paying their bills, and while they're doing their holiday shopping. Mr. President, people in the Miami Valley want to know, what are you doing to bring down prices for them and their families, and soon?
Well, first of all, for working people and middle-class people, it's a big hit. It is. The inflation, at least for the time being, is real. I've done a couple things. One, inflation is way up in terms of energy prices, particularly at the gas pump. And what I did was I was able to, under my authority, release 5 million barrels of oil from the petroleum reserve, which means put more oil on the market, reducing the price of gasoline. Now it's down in your city of Dayton below $2 a gallon now to $2.99, be $3 a gallon, $2.99. And it was, the national average is $3.32. But you're in a situation now where gasoline prices are coming down. And I think they'll come down some more, as a matter of fact, because I've worked with other countries to also release some of their reserves to reduce the price, number one. Number two, with regard to the cost of food for everyday, that's another big area. People walk in the grocery store, particularly meat, poultry, that's where the prices are up a lot. And there's a couple things going on there. Number one, as you well know, over the last several years, a lot of the big operators come in and bought out the small producers and bought out the small the small guys who are moving it from the farm onto your table. And so, for example, Tyson, this last quarter made, I think, a little over $1 billion more in profit than before because they're able to raise prices. There's so few people to compete with. I'm urging the Congress to hold hearings as to the concentration of power in a few hands controlling the food processing side of the equation. And in addition to that, my Build Back Better initiative is designed to really, in fact, look, why is inflation hurt? Inflation hurts badly for the things you need. When the things you need, if inflation in diamonds went up, it wasn't going to cost a lot of people in Miami Valley a whole lot of money. But inflation in food going up, inflation in gasoline going up, inflation in energy going up makes a big difference. And so one of the things to do also, a way to help these folks, is to reduce the cost of living for them on everything from childcare to insulin to the drugs they need, the prescriptions they need, to taking care of the elderly, to Pell Grants, to be able to get people into school. And all those things in my Build Back Better plan reduce the cost of living for average Americans significantly. For example, there was a headline, I'm told, in one of the major papers in your city today, saying that what people really cared about was the cost of childcare, and that 60% of the women who work part-time or didn't work at all will be back at work if they could afford childcare. Well, for example, in this provision of my legislation says you're not going to have to pay more than 7% of your income in childcare. That will save women or parents who have young children and they can't go to work because of that, will save them literally thousands of dollars a year. And so there's a lot of things we're doing that are going to bring down the cost of living for people and how they manage their everyday lives.
What do you say to people in the Dayton area, Mr. President, who have expressed concerns about whether trillions more in federal spending will help when you have inflation at a near 40-year high?
The way I say to them, this is not going to cost a single solitary penny. We're not going to increase the deficit by 1 cent in the Build Back Better plan at all. And what we did, in the same thing in terms of the whole effort to rebuild our infrastructure, we're paying for it. And the reason we're paying for it, we're starting to ask people to pay their fair share. I'm a capitalist. I think you should be able to go out and make $1 million or $1 billion, but at least pay your fair share. You got 52 corporations in the Fortune 500 companies who didn't pay a single solitary cent in tax the last 2 years. And guess what? They made $40 billion. It's not fair. Just pay your fair share. So if we have people we have corporation paying a minimum tax of 15% and all the things we're talking about, It's all paid for. And nobody making less than $400,000 a year will pay one single penny more for anything in taxes.
Today, Mr. President, marks 1 year since the first doses of COVID vaccines arrived here in Ohio. Your vaccine mandates have suffered some setbacks in court recently. Federal judges have halted 3 of those COVID vaccine mandates. Are you going to back down, or are you going to continue to fight those in court?
I'm going to continue to fight those in court. Look, we have when I came to office, there were only 2 million people who have been vaccinated. Since then, we have over 200 million people who have gotten at least one dose. And I believe the number is about 156,000, over 150 million, I should say, who in fact are fully vaccinated. So this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, not the vaccinated, the unvaccinated. That's the problem. And so everybody talks about freedom and not to have a shot or have a test. Well, guess what? How about patriotism? How about making sure that you're vaccinated so you do not spread the disease to anybody else? What about that? What's the big deal? What's the big deal of having to take a test once a week to know you can show up to work and you're not causing other people to get sick or your children at home? And what we've done now is we've now provided for vaccines available for people 5 years and up, 5 years and up. And in addition to that, we now have Pfizer has a new, it's not been approved yet, but looks very promising, a new pill, which if you take within 3 days of contracting COVID, you reduce by, I think it's so far 89% that likelihood to be hospitalized and die. And so there's a lot of progress being made, a lot of progress. Like I said, when I came in, there were only 2 million people who had been vaccinated. I got enough vaccine for the entire country and part of the rest of the world. And it's not that we don't, and it's free. You can just go right now, you can go to your local drugstore, walk in and get a shot. And by the way, if you haven't gotten your booster yet, get the booster. There's overwhelming evidence that it protects you and protects you in an extreme way.
Mr. President, my last question, the National Defense Authorization Act, it has a massive impact here in the Miami Valley because of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. It's here in the Dayton area. As written, it includes tens of millions for Wright-Pat, including provisions for the Air Force Research Labs and NASIC, among others. Still has to pass the Senate, although I know they did agree to the text of the version the House passed last week. If and when it passes the Senate, will you sign that by the end of the year?
Not only sign it, I wrote it. This is submitted by me and the Defense Department. So I hope they pass it.
Have you noticed that as everything around you seems to decline, one thing still grows? It is the power of your rulers. None of their plans and directives have solved your problems or made your life better. The only result has been their increased control over you at the cost of your freedom. Do you know why? You gave them the power.